Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin. Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored, where tech leaders drop the filters and just tell it like it is. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, a serial technology entrepreneur who's launched 30 companies, who's failed at 20 of those, but scaled 10 of those to success. And I turned that roller coaster of a ride into my book. It's called Fail Hard, Win Big. And this is where I teach people how you need to turn failure into your biggest competitive advantage and how custom software played a defining role in every company win. Now I'm the CEO of Sonotify Technology. We're a nearshore software engineering firm helping existing engineering teams scale. And today we have a monster of a guest here, Mathias Herzog, who is the CEO of Korn Ferry digital business, as well as president of the global technology industries at Korn Ferry. Mathias has been a tech exec at big companies like Deloitte, Infosys, and Salesforce, to name a few. We're going to have some fun here. Honored to have you, Mathias. Welcome.
Steve, thank you for having me on. Looking forward to it.
You bet. So, you are the tech leader at $3 billion plus public company. I know all our listeners would love to hear your story of the journey of your career and how you've achieved this success.
Absolutely. Happy to share a little bit. All right. So I'll go all the way back to the late 90s and early 2000s when as a freshly minted MBA graduate, I managed to start my post-MBA career in San Francisco at a large consulting firm. I still remember this. The firm asked me, "Where do you want to be?" Gave me a couple of choices for different offices, and I was like, "Let me be bold." I grew up in a small town in southern Germany. Let me be bold. I'm gonna just say San Francisco. It sounded really, really amazing. So that's where they put me, which then also squarely put me in the center of tech. And when you are based in San Francisco, it's inevitable, right? You start working in tech. And so I did. Very early in my career, then had an amazing opportunity to work on some incredibly strategic challenges for some of the biggest technology firms in the world. So did a bunch of consulting work for a number of years, really got my hands dirty in all sorts of functions. In scale technology organizations. Admittedly, right when I first started, I had to learn fast.
Kind of drinking through a fire hose, right?
Through the fire hose, right? This was also the time when you could still ramp up your knowledge by ordering some books very quickly off Amazon, and so I did a lot of weekend reading. But ramped up fast, covered all sorts of things from product to engineering, corporate strategy, pricing, etc., and did that for a number of years in consulting. At some point, I figured, I got to do some real work, and not just advise people. So I decided I wanted to make a switch, become an operator, and not just advising, but also executing. And I joined Salesforce as an executive, did a lot of expansion, go-to-market work, and did that for a number of years before moving to a late-stage startup, a Salesforce Ventures company called Automation Anywhere, and really wanted to try myself on a smaller organization. We're not tiny, but a lot smaller than the big companies I'd worked for up until that point. And so did that for a number of years. And that was a wild ride. My robotics process automation, certainly a very interesting sector, and one that also...
You can learn a lot in a smaller company where you kind of have to do everything, huh?
That's right. Exactly. There's no hiding. Got to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty, which was awesome. I mean, I loved it. It was a really, really cool time. And we also, at that point in time, moved the company and the solutions from on-prem into the cloud. So that was a wild ride too. And then I got the call from Korn Ferry. And here I am.
Awesome. So I'm pretty sure we don't have to cover what Korn Ferry does. If any of our listeners are not aware, they probably are not in the tech industry, but so certainly one of the biggest global tech consulting firms, executive search, consulting, recruitment. And then you have a unique role as the CEO of Korn Ferry Digital. Touch on that, please.
Yeah, happy to. It's a pretty cool business. The setups, we're about 400 million. I would look at us as a mid-sized SaaS business in a $3 billion company, right? The rest of which is professional services. makes for some interesting dynamics. But yeah, we've been on an interesting journey. The business came about via a number of acquisitions. Right? So we did about 20 over the course of a number of years as Korn Ferry. These acquisitions brought with them a lot of talent IP, a lot of data, a lot of applications that have been in market for a while. We also built some organically at Korn Ferry over the years, 50 to be precise, 50 years we've been in this business. And so we formed the digital business a number of years ago, really with an intent to productize all of this IP and make it available to our clients at scale. So we've been building enterprise software. We've been doubling down on that effort over the last year and a half, right, to really pull these SaaS applications together on a SaaS platform, right, that covers many, many use cases, all focused on talent outcomes across the talent lifecycle. And that is what we're taking to market now as a firm.
And you mentioned pre-show that you have over 600 people in both the product and engineering teams working on this. So you got a lot of firepower attacking this, huh?
Yeah, it's a very strategic area for us as a firm. Right? We're putting a lot of capex into the business because we think that the IP that we have and the proprietary data that we have, right, can really make a difference to our clients as they navigate all the challenges that we all are seeing, challenges and opportunities, really, right? So AI changing roles and skills, and workforce transformations happening, business models adjusting, right? So talent needs to adjust, and so it's an area where we see a lot of opportunity and growth, and hence we're putting our money where our mouth is and our minds are.
Data.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's a really interesting setup, right? So from my prior lives, right, I've either been in software or I've been in services. Now I got both, and there's a lot of opportunity in that combination, right? So there's a lot of symbiotic relationships that exist, but they're fundamentally different businesses, right? So when you're in a consulting business, right, you don't talk about product marketing or product management. You don't about customer success management or solution architecture or solution engineering. I mean, those are very different functions. And similarly, when you're in a product business, you don't think about all the practices that you would find in a services organization, right, which are more human centered. And so the I think the challenge, and really, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, right? So I think the opportunity for us is to bring these business models together and make them work together. And the way we're doing this is we're building software. Right? We're building software that our clients can consume and buy and use directly. But that software also is embedded in all of our solutions, right? In consulting, in search, in talent acquisition. And so it really creates this symbiotic relationship between the different offerings that we have at Korn Ferry that reinforce each other and that build on top of one another. And it's a super, super interesting setup, not one without challenges, right? Because you have to do a lot of educating and making sure that everybody understands when you're speaking different languages. But one I think that's going to deliver great dividends for us as a firm.
So before the show, you were mentioning one of your pain points is that you have all this strong IP, this proprietary data, you have all these acquisitions, and you're tasked with bringing this all together so it can create this powerful product moving forward. Tell us about that.
Yeah, look, I think maybe just to make this real. So give you a couple of for instances. So we've invested a lot in defining what great looks like in a given role, a job role. So we got these success profiles. We got thousands of them. Then we have one of the world's largest pay databases. They're also tied to roles and tied to jobs. And then we have a very, very large and scaled assessment business, right, where you assess individuals against a given role. All of these distinct applications that produce data. Right? Now, when they're not harmonized, right, you're dealing with different data structures, right? When they're sitting on different architectures because they were built at different points in time, it's not that easy to deliver a unified customer experience on all of those things, which should actually come together. And so for us, a big lift has been to harmonize all of these data structures, bring all the data together, and create integrated workflows that cut across all of these applications and use cases, and do that in a scalable manner, right, that then delivers all of these capabilities at a enterprise grade level.
I'm picturing like a mile-long whiteboard with 50 different tech stacks for all the different things and how you're bringing them together.
You should see the as is data flows that our architects put together, that we had to start from. So this has been a fun ride.
So, talk about, if you would, how are your product and engineering teams structured? What's the work model? Where are they located?
Yeah, pretty nothing super novel, I would say, from a where the team is primarily U.S. and India. That's where our hubs are. We're very classic organization structure on product. We have dedicated product management teams, general managers for our different applications, engineering teams that are mapped to the applications. We have a platform team that is really set up to bring all of this together in a coherent manner. What's maybe a bit unique about us is we have because our applications they're centered around our IP. We have a very tight relationship and partnership with the Korn Ferry Institute, right? So that's essentially our research and development arm at Korn Ferry that continuously evolves at the science, right, that underpins our products, and that's a pretty interesting setup for us, and one that's intended to continue to evolve our science, right, that on our product management and engineering teams built into our products. Other than that, I would say, we've got data scientists at the firm, and then we also have a dedicated AI team, right? Because as everybody does, we are also leaning in heavily on AI to make sure that agentic AI-based solutions are part of the platform and part of the talent suite.
Now, is your engineering team, are they remote? Are they hybrid? Are they in office? Maybe a different situation in India versus the US?
Yeah, we're very remote, very remote. Now, what we do is, we bring together teams for working sessions. So where we get people to the office when we need to tackle a specific topic, right? Roadmap planning, or if we need to go through a budgeting exercise, or quarterly release planning, right? Things like that. But we're a very remote culture.
When you're working with small to mid-sized companies, you have some challenges versus massive companies like Korn Ferry, but I understand. I understand. So tell us how, in your vantage point, in your world, how agentic AI is evolving the landscape, and where do you see um, from a talent digital perspective, how things will evolve over the next 5 and 10 years as where AI is advancing so quickly?
Yeah. I can take that question in a number of different ways, right? So it's just how agentic AI is coming into the picture for us. I mean, it's quite interesting, right? So when you think about, like, God, 90s, right? So a lot of talent development, learning development that was offered at the leadership level, but then also to workforces, was pretty static. And so you had, like, these static content heavy courses that were delivered via online learning, kind of boring, and you just sat through those things, right? And then you, on the other hand, right, especially at the executive level, you had things like, coaching, human coaching, that would happen mostly at the leadership level. So what's changing with agentic AI, right? You can actually scale that, right? You can change the form factor, the delivery modes by which learning and development is delivered. So the way we're leaning in on that is, we'd say, well, there's a lot of learning content out there, right? But what if you have an avatar that you can engage with? And that avatar actually helps you and gives you feedback based on your assessment results. What if you want to practice based on your individual assessment results? Well, you can use conversational agentic AI to simulate situations. Very, very different form factor. a very different kind of learning and development experience that you can now provide, which augments other things that are already out there. Human coaching still very much has a place, right? But if you want to democratize coaching to the workforce at scale, you can't do that just with human coaches,
Yep.
right? And so now conversational agentic AI, things like dynamic feedback, avatar-based solutions can actually augment that, right, and can provide that at scale, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of change in the talent space as HR functions are looking to scale and do more less, right? So the pressure to deliver talent outcomes is not going to go away, but the budgets are not, they're not growing, they're under pressure. So I think AI is going to have a very, very pervasive impact. It also impacts how we think about productivity at the firm. And that's a very heavy focus for us, heavy in the sense that we're putting a lot of effort into it. And we're looking to deploy tooling really across the firm. Right? Our engineering team is leaning in on Agentic, on AI powered tooling, right, to help them drive productivity up. And we're seeing that in other functions as well. Right? So lot happening with AI, as I'm sure I'm not the only one who's shared that.
So, Matthias, what's your take on this aspect? So, in the software engineering world, and I'm going to be biased towards that, but this really applies to any role. You have the issue now that it's easy for anyone to customize their resume based on the job posting using AI and submitting, to get interviewed. And then the challenge of them having AI assistants during the interview remote to maybe keep it more focused around software engineers. It creates additional steps to really verify what they know and what they don't. What's your take and experience with this?
It's a great question, right? So how do you, it really comes down to how can you be sure, right, that when you're considering a candidate for a job that what they're saying, is true, right? And that they're really a good fit for the role that you're considering the candidate for. I think the answer to this is also going to evolve, right? I mean, you can't just ask somebody about their experiences and make a call based on that. So, the way we're coming at this and the way we're helping our clients with this challenge is to actually say, well, the first thing you got to do is you got to really be clear, right, on what that job is and what great looks like in that job. So what are the skills that you need, but then also we strongly believe that it's not just the technical skills, it's also the psychometrics in a role, right? So your competencies, your character traits, what drives you as an individual, and those things you can assess. Now, can then say, well, can you actually game the assessments? Yeah, I mean, you can try. And so there's a little bit of a race that's on. Right? So we've built some proctoring capabilities into our assessment products as well, right, to make sure that it's actually truly you who's taking the assessment.
Okay.
But it's definitely an evolving space, right? Where determining whether somebody has what it takes to be successful in a role, we have solutions for that, but they also need to evolve.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. Despite all the news on layoffs and challenges in tech, I would argue, and most of the leaders on the podcast agree, that it's still very hard to find senior engineering talent. And it's even harder to weed through them now, once again, in this fully remote world, to ensure they truly have the skills versus they're AIing their way through it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So we're doing a lot of work with our customers, and this cuts across both our consulting and our product solutions on helping our clients define and understand the impact of AI on their business and more specifically on their talent. We have chosen a path that goes beyond inferencing, right? Of what you need to assess whether or not somebody has what it takes to be successful. We're continuing to lean in with science, right? I mentioned earlier the Korn Ferry Institute, right? So we're putting a lot of effort into correlating success and understanding, what the implications are for AI on a given role. So you'll hear us talk a lot about, and we're pretty public about this with our published thought leadership around AI ready leader, right? So what does that mean, right? What does it mean to be AI ready?
Mhm.
And how do you actually see when somebody's AI ready when you look at their success, at their profiles, at their competencies, their traits, their drivers, their skills, right? And so we've chosen to continue to double down on the science, on our intellectual property to really build that out so that we can help organizations. And that obviously continues to get augmented with things like inferencing, right? When you look at skills, at technical and functional skills.
It's definitely an ever evolving world and exciting and changing every day. It's a lot to keep up with. So, Matthias, what is your take? So, certainly all over the headlines is that companies are losing money on their AI initiatives. MIT publishes a quarterly report on it. Actually, today, some tech stocks are doing really bad, largely because of losses. And why do you think that is that companies are seeing negative ROI on their AI investments right now? Or there's the sentiment that that's the case?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I don't. I think it's a bit of like a pendulum in my mind. I think there's like with other innovations. And if I equate this to what happened with the robotics, with RPA, with automation, a lot of hype. Right? A lot of hype. Everything's going to get automated. AI is going to be everywhere, and there's a lot of hype, right? And a lot of companies leaning in to figure it out. You go further back, right? When you think about e-commerce,
Hmm.
e-commerce initiatives, you'll remember this, right? So early 2000s, everybody was spinning up e-commerce initiatives,
Yes.
digital initiatives, right? And it's like everywhere. And I think what's going to happen, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I suspect is going to happen is that there's going to be a bit of a calibration that needs to happen, where companies go from this hyped experimentation into use cases, right, and into use cases that are really going to make an impact, right? And I think we're going to see that calibration is going to happen because the technology is so promising and so pervasive now that it's a matter of time for that to get dialed in, right? So I see this for us, right? Now, how we lean in with AI, right? And we're in providing AI tooling for everybody, right? We're AI enabling our workforce, and we're seeing an uptick in how people are using it. We're also putting measurement in place to see what are we actually getting out of it. And I can tell you for us, right, the signs are strong, right, that we're seeing productivity lifts, not for every use case,
Mhm.
but for the ones that we're seeing a return on, we're going to scale those, right? And so it's a bit of a calibration that's happening here. So I'm optimistic.
How do you handle that?
I was a 5-year old,
Uh huh.
simple, like simple language, like everybody can understand. Right? It's not to say dumb it down, right? But it's just explaining things simply. I would typically not lead with an instruction manual.
Probably a good idea.
Yep. So you don't see me pulling out architectural diagrams and data flow diagrams when I have conversations with our board. So it's just keeping it really simply focused on business outcomes, and that's typically where it starts. Right. So that the technology, we can most certainly double click and get into it and how this all works. Just keeping it super simple, and then meeting people where they're at.
I like it. And that's definitely one of the biggest challenges. Somebody reads an article or talks to another CEO, and it can sometimes keep tech leaders spinning.
Yeah.
And with that, Matthias, so honored that you got uncensored with us today. You've had an amazing journey throughout your career. You're doing great things at Korn Ferry. Love what you're doing. What no BS advice do you have for today's tech leaders who are trying to build, scale, or even just survive in these interesting times?
Yeah, yeah. I like advice for tech leaders or leaders in general. I think there's a few things that I would put out as my lessons learned, as I've gone progressed through my career. First one I think is just listen first. Like There's the chances are that somebody already had that great idea and couldn't get it off the ground for some reason, and you really want to understand that reason. That's maybe one. The other no regret move, lesson learned for me is you just got to make sure you surround yourself with really good people, people that can, that are super smart, that are go getters, and that can challenge you to think better and bigger and better. And I'm a big believer in that. And that's really a key way to, and then don't get distracted, right? Package and land stuff. You got to stay focused. You got to deliver. Don't spin up too many things. There's always shiny objects out there.
The shiny objects are definitely the challenge right now.
Yep. A lot of shiny objects. And so you got to package and land stuff. And don't spin up too many things that you can't land.
Great advice. Mathias, thank you so much. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, well, we're just going to send it to your competitors, probably the edge they need to get ahead. Remember to fail hard, win big, and always build what matters. See you next time. That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.